Good morning. Welcome back to AM FM 247 Cool Your Heels with Lillian Cauldwell and Passionate World Radio Network, the world in your hands. And this morning at 11, our special guest is Hal Price, who wrote a series of books aimed at children who are sick in the hospital. The Adventures of Eli Benjamin Bear, Our Heart's Journey Home. Good morning, Hal. How are you?
Lillian, I've never been better. Thank you. I'm cooling my heels, getting ready for a fun discussion.
Terrific. So, what persuaded you to, and I gather you also did the illustrations for the book?
Well, I actually, a neighbor of mine who had was stricken with esophageal cancer was a former Disney art studio director, and I had a heart challenge back in 2014, and he was going through cancer, and we put this thing together, and he's studied under Stan Lee. His name was Michael Bayouth back when he was 16 years old from Marvel Comics, and Disney hired him right out of high school to go work at Disney. So he did all of my illustrations, and I did all the poetry and writing.
Awesome. So why did you decide to write a book dedicated to children in the hospital with cancer?
Well, I really just wanted to write a book for children who face any adversity. And the inspiration came, my mom was diagnosed with dementia back in 2000, and it eventually became Alzheimer's disease around 2008. And by 2012, when I would go visit her, Lillian, one day I walked in, it was in June, and she had no idea who I was, and it was just a horrible experience. And I'm like, what do I do with this? And so what I did was I remembered that, what gave me comfort when I was little was the stories that she read me and the bear that I had. So I went to her old house, and I went into the attic, and I got my bear, actually, my little Eli bear from 1958, and I brought all the Golden Book stories that she ever read to me. And I put him in her lap, and I read her the stories. And she was blind and had no memory. And as I read the stories, she began to verbalize every story that she ever read to me. And I knew in that moment there was something very powerful about the bonding experience that we had shared some 56 years earlier, and that those memories never die. So once Mom passed away, I started doing a lot more research on that and realized that there's something magical about the bonding time, especially with rhyming stories, where children have this rhythm where they can really feel and be lulled to sleep, and the bonding that brings them to a sense of peace before they drift off into sleep. So I'm like, I just started writing this book back in 2010, and it kind of got away from me, and then the book never gave up on me and just said, we're going to write this book. And I got up every morning at 3 o'clock and wrote the book. So there it is.
I think that's really nice. And now that I'm looking at the illustrations, he has a zipper on it.
Yes, he does.
And I think that I was struck by the illustrations first. My son is a graphic artist and very well known. He's done a lot of work for Disney as well and Marvel.
In this case, I wanted to take something that was, for me, I had a heart challenge back in 2014 where God grabbed me by the heart at 4:12 one morning and just said, today's an important decision to make about your blood pressure and your lifestyle. So he grabbed me pretty hard and said, let's make some choices. And from that moment, I actually said, I'm going to start living from my heart and not do. I had been giving my writing away to everybody that wanted to sell something that maybe I didn't necessarily believe in. And in that moment, I said, I'm going to go write for me and from my heart. So that's why I wanted to use the symbolism for the zippered heart. So Eli is born prematurely, and his parents have to rush him to the Bear Memorial Hospital, but they can't help him there. So he's taken 600 miles away from them to Heroic Hearts Hospital in Duckbill, Mississippi, from Bear Ridge, Tennessee, and he's going to have to face a lot of challenges. Not only does he have a heart challenge, but he's also having to deal with human infants and little kids who are having heart problems, and he has to learn their language and has to learn, to find his way back home also eventually. And before he leaves to go to the hospital in Mississippi, his mom sings him a lullaby, but she's coded that lullaby with a special message that if he can learn to remember to listen to his heart, that message will always take him back directly to home.
And isn't that true? I mean,
true.
I think adults lose their way because they stop paying attention to what's inside of them.
Absolutely. So it's symbolic for when you open your heart and when do you close your heart. But I learned that when I unzipped my heart a whole lot more, I let more in and I allowed more to go out.
And that's an important lesson to learn at any age. So it sounds like the book is more for parents than it is for kids.
I call it sneaky spiritualism. So I wrote it so that the person that reads it gets more than the person they're reading to. So what you don't know is that the book that you're holding in your hand is the first in a series of probably 5 or 6 books, which will kind of chronicle the memoirs of Eli Benjamin Bare's life and how he goes through life learning to follow his heart. But what that book will have, which is what I'm working on now, is I'm taking, as you see, there's 58 chapters of about 3 pages each, which is a perfect little setup for a nightly bedtime story, with a cliffhanger for 2 months, 60 nights of reading. That's something that I wanted to be sure that Mom and I reinstill with everybody. But what I wanted to do was take some of those big adventures in there and pull them out and make them color children's books. So there'll be 4 children's books that come out of the big book that you're holding in your hand now, so that kids can start early to learn to listen to their hearts in a more simple language, and then upgrade to the more profound teachings that Eli learns that he shares with the parents and the children and the grandparents that read the story aloud.
You know what your books reminded me of? Because I went and took a look at some of the insides and went a little further. They remind me of the Dr. Seuss books, and I'll tell you why.
Why?
Because I had to read all those books to my son before he went to sleep. Mm-hmm. And if you pay attention to what he's saying with his rhymes, they're just not thrown together. Mm-hmm. There's a purpose behind each and every line where he's trying to teach kids about discrimination, conformity, heart's desire, relationships. I mean, the Grinch is just full of it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I was inspired by both Dr. Seuss and by Sheldon Silverstein. I think those were kind of out-of-the-box thinkers, drawers, poets that took us out of the old stories that we had been listening to up until that time. And I wanted to bring a message to the readers that was soothing and comforting, and to know that you're going to be okay. Everybody, if you're on the planet, you're going to go through hardships. So how do you deal with it? And those are the lessons that Eli Benjamin Bare brings to kids and parents and grandparents all alike. And
I think, too, that the Eli Bare also stands for a child's inner being, and that you should keep it somewhere, whether it's in your mind or in your heart, but you need to keep the playfulness of that bear inside of you. And listen to that voice when he or she of that bear speaks to you, because there's something that you're not quite understanding. So you need to really listen.
The inner child is our key to joy and to live in our own passion. Absolutely. I agree with you, Lillian.
And I think that's really good. Has your friend, the illustrator, Michael, maybe suggested you should put it into an animation series?
He has told me that he says you're a couple of little nuances away from making an actual a screenplay with this story here. He says yes. He writes a lot of screenplays for Fox and for pretty big LA movie companies. So he's like, Hal, if you would like to see this be either animated or into a film series, you've got the makings of a really powerful story to do that. So
I think you should, because I really think that a little faith goes a long way.
Well, it's just funny you say that. So everybody's like, where did Eli come from? I'm like, that's what Mom and I named my bear back in 1958. I've still got that bear. And I was talking to Mom before she had lost her memory, and we just said, where did Eli come from? She says, well, that's Elijah, who was the prophet who hid from God and wouldn't go and speak his word and his truth. He hid in a cave and wouldn't do what God asked him to do. So here, 60 years later, my heart challenge opens my heart up to say it's time to go speak what's true in my heart and use my words to make a difference in the planet. So, Elijah's returning. So.
Well, and Elijah is a spiritual moment for you. It is opening up the gates.
Absolutely.
And I'm an author as well, and while I don't go to church or anything, everybody, I believe, carries a grain of faith within them.
You have to.
I was taught God is everywhere. You don't have to go to church to see him.
Yeah.
He is everywhere. So that when the Spirit moves you, and trust me, listeners, it does move you, you need to pay attention because it won't let you alone. I mean, I still have something to do, and I know I won't die. So when you see me at 1,000 years old, you'll realize that I'm still trying to figure it out. And other people, it's very clear, as it was with Hal.
You know what? You remind me one thing. So let me read you one little thing here that I wrote because I'm in a writers group in Santa Barbara, California, and one of the ladies says, "Hal, why do you keep calling it Creator versus God?" I'm like, I don't want to alienate anybody from reading this book, so I put this little thing together. So I changed everything. I didn't call it Creator or anything. I wanted to let the book be revealed through the bear's experience. So his nurse is walking him she's rolling him down the hall on page 71. She says, I got into my wheelchair then. Nurse Dora guided me. I pulled more tightly on my cape and felt my family. As we rolled along, Nurse Dora said, Eli, you need to know. There's a great bear spirit in the sky who sees all and loves you so. She said, Great Bear is with you now. It's holding your mom, too. The Great Bear loves you night and day, and it's here to see you through. I asked Dora if she knew Great Bear. She said, Love takes many forms. For bears, it is more furry, but for all, love is the norm. It's funny how we name things, and we never understand. Some mysteries just can't be named, and that's a lesson in love's plan. Dora said, just know love's here for you. It can go by any name. Please know that you're a part of it, and it loves us all the same. I then felt Great Bear holding me. It wrapped me in its arms. It whispered, Child, I love you, and your heart will not be harmed. Dora rolled me into the big, bright room. I felt my eyes grow tired. I woke up in a different place. My chest was shaved and wired.
Yes, that's very deep, very moving, and very heartfelt.
So I try to bring that sense of every page that I write for the reader to just know that love surrounds him. Whatever you're going to call that thing that creates us or that, gives us our great lessons in life, it's love. It's teaching us to be better.
Yes, and what an important lesson to learn. And a lot of people only love on one level.
Right.
I have a little 5-year-old who already knows how to love on many levels to many, many people. He goes up to strangers and hugs them.
And that's why I love working with children. They are so pure and innocent, and I feed off of their love and their curiosity and their imagination. I had lost that sense having worked in court. I ran the sports department for the Coca-Cola company in Atlanta, Georgia for years, Lillian, and I just started losing me in the process. I became this person who worked to make money and to have things versus someone that had a passion for bringing something into the world that meant something to me that could ignite inspiration or passion in other people.
And isn't it nice that you were called?
Yeah.
Yes, it hurt.
A little late, but I answered the call, yes.
But then if you think about it, that's the only way really he can teach, or they can teach that lesson.
That's right.
They have to inattentionally hurt you in order to really get your full attention.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
Well, tell me about it. I always kind of liken myself to Job here.
Yeah, there you go.
You got great faith, but sometimes you need your friends and enemies to make your faith even greater. And I try to explain to people that faith is different from religion.
Absolutely.
And that faith in spiritualism and being spiritual are two different things as well, and you really ought not confuse the two.
Right.
So I think it's terrific. So do you have other books planned for Eli Bear or Pajama-Rama?
Yeah, I started something fun just to let my kid, my inner child, get out and play a little bit. So I created this thing called Pajama-Rama Bedtime Story Benefits. And I kicked it off with the actual launch of my book on September the 9th, which was both National Teddy Bear Day and National Grandparents' Day in September. So I had the whole town of Carpinteria. I rented out the local movie theater, which was built in 1929, and it holds 200 people. And we all wore pajamas and brought our teddy bears for an hour and a half of stories and fun and just reconnecting with everybody. So I had grandparents invited by their grandchildren to wear their pajamas. Great pictures. So I've kind of trademarked this thing now. So I'm beginning to set up teddy bear Pajama-Rama parties all over the country. I'm doing 6 while I'm here in Atlanta. I've got 2 more to go, and I'm doing 4 in South Carolina when I go home to my hometown next week. But the big thing for me was giving back. So as you'll see, a percentage of all the proceeds from the sales of the books that I'm doing go to support Teddy Bear Cancer Foundation, which is an organization near me and dear to my heart. I've worked with them for the last 4 years, helping them raise money to help families for kids with pediatric cancer. So I've planned a series of 4 to 6 books, and it just continues. So Eli first learns to listen to his heart in book 1. How do you follow your heart? In book 2, can you hear me okay?
You're fine.
Okay. In book 2, once he finds his way home, his mom promises to read him a story every night to tell him who he is, where he came from, the people that came before him that's all a part of his lineage, and the experiences that they've had that are all inside of him. So the first story she tells him is about his grandpa Droopy Drawers, who's the bear that Teddy Roosevelt refused to shoot in the woods in Smeads, Mississippi in 1902. And because of Teddy Roosevelt's compassion for Eli's grandfather is the reason all children have teddy bears. Compassion is the reason we have teddy bears. So he learns 9 virtue stories from his predecessors and how it changed the world just by being themselves. So once that's the end of book 2. He gets all these virtues. So now that he has his heart in book 1, his virtues in book 2, his mom tells him in book 3, it's time to put you into service. I'm going to find the right home for you so where you can go and love and teach and share time and imagination with a young child. And it ends up being that my mom picked up that bear in 1958 in Bear Ridge, Tennessee, and brought him home to me. And it's the adventures of Eli and me from 1958 until I passed the age of innocence, where it wasn't cool to have the bear anymore. And then the next book, book 4, is where he ended up going to Goodwill again because I didn't love him the way I'm supposed to. And he escapes Goodwill, and he can only find me when I buy a teddy bear either for my children or my grandchildren later in life, because his heart lights up every time I buy a bear. And that's his journey to find me now and to reminisce about all of our journeys 60 years later. So book 4 is about our reminiscing and our memoirs.
That sounds very exciting. It reminds me of Paddington Bear over in England.
Ah, okay.
Yes. And more importantly, it reminds me of a commercial that they show about a lady being pregnant, and she has a little bear perched on her pregnant belly, which I think is really neat, that you can almost have a story about Eli Bear talking to the fetus.
Yes, I love that.
Inside, the lady's belly, because I know that before my son was born, I would play a lot of music for him and read him stories and stuff.
I played the Beatles through a headset on my wife's pregnant belly, so they knew the Beatles. My daughter knew the Beatles before she ever arrived.
Exactly, and they do seem to pick up something like that. It's very interesting, and I know my granddaughters couldn't wait for me to come and tell them stories.
I love it.
Every night, and their daddy would sing to them. So I know that it works.
Lillian, I want to also give you asked me to pick one passage. When you when you keyed the heart, it just took me to read you the story about the Great Bear Spirit, but I wanted to read you one that's called the Bear Essentials Code of Life. And this is a message that Eli's father leaves with him to take to the hospital with him when he goes for his surgery. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read it.
Please do.
Okay. It's called the Bear Essentials of Life. It's be who you are and know yourself. Pretenders are not real. Say what you mean and don't hold back. Express the way you feel. When you know yourself, you can't be lost, and your life will take you far. The key is being true to you and remembering who you are. Respect all life. It's here for you, and trust your heart to guide. Know love surrounds you every day. It never leaves your side. Be still and quiet. You're not alone. And in your stillness hear the whispers of a wise, sweet voice who cares for you, my dear. Please laugh and sing out every day. Your joy, expressed in sound, can fill the hearts of those you love. They're blessed when you're around. Remember, every word and thought creates the world you'll see. And say I love you every day, and say it joyfully. Remember, you are special, child, and have a precious gift. And when you bring your gift to serve, the hearts you touch will lift. There's no one else like you, my child. You are stardust made from love. Appreciate the life you have and thank your stars above. I promise you can change the world. Allow your feelings to be felt and trust the wisdom of your heart to let you be yourself. One final message for your heart. Its power will ring true. I believe in you with all my heart. Now you believe in you.
Excellent. Hal, please tell everybody where they can find you on the World Wide Web, about your website, how to contact you, upcoming appearances, etc.
Sure. The best site for me right now is Eli's site. It's www.elibearstories.com. ELIBEARSTORIES.com. And there you can get autographed books from me, and I also send out, when people get an autographed book, I send them a poster of that Bear Essentials Life that I just read to you, and a special bookmark that has a lot of really good insight and stuff on it as well for the kids to use for their books.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. Well, ladies and gentlemen and children of all ages, that sums up the interview with Hal Price. You can hear him next Tuesday from 8 to 9 on AMFM247.com, on https://passionateworldradionetwork.com, iHeartRadio. You can hear him on Alexa. You can also hear him on iTunes.com/CoolYourHeels, Facebook.com/PWR Network LLC and Passionate World Radio, Twitter.com/Cauldwell, CAULDWELL_S, Google+, Truly, LinkedIn, all the directories. Check them out. They will be there. And before you go away and stray, Xavier Funray had this to say in 1838, "The future is a mirror without any glass in it." Thank you all very much for listening. And remember, please keep listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Lillian.